Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? Hope it's all great and fantastic and wonderful and amazing. Everything here is good. And I made some progress on the train game. Even though I haven't play tested in a while. In fact, I haven't really been doing any game design for a while for a few different reasons. One of them is probably depression. I think some of you have noticed that I've been in a bit of a slump lately, and that's okay. Like, I'm allowed to have slumps. So I've had a bit of a slump. But another part of the reason is that I needed to take a break from it all. Like, every like how to write a novelist who gives writing advice says that you have to write something and you have to take a break from it. You have to distance yourself from it because you fall in love with whatever it is that you wrote and you can't see the errors and flaws. So I took a break from the games, but I have made a small bit of progress on the train game because the map had a few things that were bothering me. And I wanted to talk about the map today because I've specifically had quite a few questions from people about how I designed this map. Like, was there some sort of algorithmic process I went through? And the reality is, no. It was pretty much designed by gut feel. There were a few things that I had in mind when I designed it. For instance, in the game, there are 3 different, quote, levels of company. So the black and the orange companies, there's only 4 stocks for those companies for the entire game. The red and the yellow companies, I believe there are, let's see, 2, 4, there are 8 stocks for the red and the yellow companies, and the blue company there are 12. And so I knew in my head that black and orange were going to be able to make far fewer connections than blue, right? And I wanted that to be the case. And so I put blue right in the middle of the board. Like, that was my starting thought. I'll put blue in the middle of the board. Blue has the most potential, but blue's going to pay the least in the beginning, right? And so from that, I moved yellow and red out and black and orange out, and I kept them kind of across the dividing line. If you don't know, this is a 2-player game, and so I'm on this side, you're on that side. So I kept one of each across the dividing line just because people tend to play that way. They tend to play games where what's over here is mine and what's over there is yours, and so I'm going to try to make something out of this. And in reality, that's not even remotely necessary. What I have found in this game is that the cards dramatically have a much bigger impact on what you choose to do on your turn because they impact what you can do. So I started with that. Knowing that black and orange only have 1 share in the first round means that you can only play 1 or 2 cards for black and orange in that first round. Basically, you can make a single connection. And I wanted that to always be available. So black and orange are the only companies that start 2 spaces away from a city. All of the rest are at least 3 spaces or 4 spaces away from a city. But black and orange are exactly 2 spaces away from a city. And that was completely intentional. And then, you know, after I figured that part out, I just kind of went in and pasted in some water, pasted in some terrain. There's more water down here, so there's more difficult terrain up here. It was kind of just by feel. And it's worked beautifully for all this time. There's been a couple of problems. And the main one is I introduced cards that they give each player special powers. And so this map wasn't designed with that in mind. And what that means is for a player, you know, it becomes much easier to make connections with certain powers. But on top of that, I made a mistake in that the black train company is 2 away from this city, and this city is only 2 away from this city. So it is possible for black to make 2 connections on turn 1, or on round 1, with just 1 certificate. And I didn't want that. I did not want that. Because in a perfect world, if you get the perfect draw, and the cards match the layout of the board perfectly, you can lay 6 track pieces per turn. So I needed I've tried to make sure orange is more than 6 away from 2 connections, but black is not. Black is exactly 6 away from 2 connections, so it's very possible for black to make 2 connections on the first turn. It's rare, but it happens, and when it happens, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good for the person who doesn't take it and doesn't have that amazing draw. It feels bad for the other person. So step 1 of this process was to move this city away from this city by 1. That way it's impossible for black to make that connection without having the special cards. That also means that that special card, that there's like there's just one special card that really makes this possible, and that makes that card much more valuable. And so the players should be bidding on it more. The other thing was I put a little too much difficult terrain over here. Yellow is the only company that goes for this city on the flank. And once it's there, it's kind of stuck because there's difficult terrain stopping it here. There's difficult terrain that blocks this entire progress into this area. And yellow can't go for blue. So for yellow to break out of here, it has to come across this river over to the other side of the board. It just kind of feels awkward for yellow in that position. So I went ahead and I ordered a new board where I moved this space and I cleaned up some of this difficult terrain. So yellow has a path through here and can start to kind of move down the board. Now, the reason that I didn't really care so much for the longest time, I mean, this is like the 10th or 11th iteration of this part of the board. This is all of the payout structure, all of the turn structure and round structure has dramatically changed every iteration of the board. This has been a constant since day 1. And the reason is players get to auction for who goes first. Players get to self-balance, essentially, which means that this board kind of self-balances it. The problem is when you play with a new player and they don't understand, it breaks. Or it doesn't break, it just makes the experience less interesting for them. One of the things that I always tell people in the beginning of the game, they see these values for black and orange, red and blue, and they say, well, wow, black and orange is worth $6. That's way better than the $2 of a blue. But what they don't realize is there's only 4 shares. So black and orange at most are going to make 3 connections, maybe 4 if it's perfect, right? Blue's going to get 8 to 10 connections every game like that. So blue in the final round is worth dramatically more than black and orange, and that means that blue has paid out more over the lifetime of the game. So it's something that I point out early. I did also tweak a little bit of the values over here when I ordered the new board. But the point I'm having is taking a little break from it and looking at it objectively allowed me to say, all right, I don't like the way this works. I don't like the way that works. I want to tweak that a little bit, and let's make incremental changes. You know, this whole side of the board, I don't know if you can tell on the camera, it's not as shiny. That's because this is a label that I've pasted over the original that I ordered from the Game Crafter. But I've ordered a new board, which should be here by the weekend, which means I can play test it this weekend and see where we're at. But I'm getting close enough with this version of the game for me to say, all right, I think I'm done with this. I have another iteration of a 2-player train game that I want to explore, and I thought it was a good fit for this, but it's not. The card play makes the other version a little bit more awkward. And so I think I can use the map. I can use the map structure. I might even be able to use the payout structure, but the cards have to be replaced by something to try out this other version of the 2-player train idea. So we'll see. You know, I'm going to play with that. But first off, I want to get this card-driven version done, like what I consider done. And right now, I think I'm still, if I'm honest with myself, I'm probably still a few iterations away. I'm probably still a few, there's a few pieces that need to be adjusted before I'm happy and say, okay, I think that works the way I want it to. But I haven't tested it in at least 3 weeks now, maybe 4 weeks. And I need to test it and try it and see what I think. So, progress. And hopefully, you know, hopefully this slump won't last a whole lot longer. It just is what it is. I kind of have to let it run its course, and then I'll be back onto something. There you go. That's how I came up with this map. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe that was super confusing, and if not, if it helped you understand my process, cool. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends, wonderful people. I really appreciate you. And I'll see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is iconoclast. That is a noun meaning an individual who is contrarian in thought, rebellious in spirit, oppositional, and who applies himself to battling established institutions, existing governments, religious doctrine, and popular notions and beliefs. The late George Carlin saw the role of the comic in society as one of iconoclast. Iconoclast. I-C-O-N-O-C-L-A-S-T. I have inadvertently identified myself as being an iconoclast for a large portion of my life. I have always avoided anything that's popular because I've always found that it's usually tropes are popular because tropes are popular, right? But I'm not anti-government or whatever the rest of that stuff was.